Testing, 1, 2, 3. I do hope that it does not sound like that I'm underwater. We're going to do this round 2, second take. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast and welcome back to Bandit Network Television. Thank you for tuning in to another segment of the IDAHO4 series. So tonight, the topic at hand that I'll be giving my commentary to you and also sharing an older piece of information since people want to speak about the roommates, the 2 surviving roommates, and the 4 slayings that took place on November 13th, 2022. A lot of people don't like you talking about Bethany or Dylan. And to give you guys a reminder of who we are talking about, the 2 survivors, if you are unfamiliar exactly with the case, there's a reason why I share pictures of the IDAHO4 house. And that's because for the ones of you that are not familiar, it gives you a better layout, at least from the outside of the home. Now, I've also made a video. It's on TikTok. It's not here on YouTube, or maybe it is, but maybe, I don't know. I think I deleted it. Anyways, I've also made a walkthrough video of inside the actual house, like a virtual walkthrough. But you can see the outside of this house by now. A lot of people, you would be surprised if they're unfamiliar with the case. And this is a very crucial part, in my opinion, is the house itself, the actual vessel in which these crimes took place. Bringing the topic back to Dylan Mortensen, which is who we learned ever since the PCA was released, was on the 2nd floor of the home. And the 2nd floor of the home is the one that is on top of the beam that is separating the ground level. So right above the door and right above the window on the right side where the police car is. That would be the 2nd floor of the home. Xana and Ethan were also on that right side on the 2nd floor, which you're looking at. Dylan was on the same floor. She allegedly witnessed, a perpetrator exit the King Road house out the back door of the kitchen. Now, prior to this occurring, she was up opening and closing doors. She heard what appeared to be a dog. She thought that Kaylee was playing with her dog. She heard that someone say that there was somebody here. So I guess she got up and she allegedly told her roommates to pop it down. I'm trying to sleep. STFU. Ooh. she was like, "Shut the fuck up. I'm trying to sleep. What's all that ruckus? It's coming from the second floor. I have exams in the morning, honey. Y'all need to pipe it down. Jeez, go to bed." Well, that's the thing. Were they really in bed? Because, and let me just go ahead and say this for the people that want to get that, because I know that people get very touchy when you want to talk about the two surviving roommates, but they're also witnesses. I'm sorry. Not sorry. They're witnesses as well. I'm not implying that they had something to do with their friend's demise. What I'm trying to say is that it does not look good for at least one of them to fight the defense. Be like, yeah, that's who I saw. Why is it a big deal if you don't have anything to hide? Or if you don't know if you're going to get in trouble or not? And I'm referring to Miss Fuke. We really don't hear much about Bethany. Now, do we? Anywho, we are led to believe, getting back to the topic, what I was talking about, Dylan, she was on the second floor of the home, y'all. She witnessed, allegedly, the perpetrator exit out the back door. She was up opening and closing doors, telling her friends to be quiet, whatever she said. She heard whimpering, she heard crying, and then on the final time that she opened up the door, she saw someone clad in black walk past her out the back door. Walk towards her, past her, and out the back door. And there's a 5-minute gap. There's a 5-minute gap period based off of the evidence gathered on their phone where the vehicle left. Now, I'm bringing it back to the center. I didn't forget about my title. Why were they texting each other afterwards if the time that we got off their phone is 4:25, but the car left at 4:20? And now we hear this older information being leaked from a jury member to Steve Goncalves that they were up texting each other. Now, my next question would be, how long were they texting each other? Were they texting each other during the crimes? Because that ain't gonna look good. I'm just saying. Now you can argue, well, Isaac, they were scared. They don't know what they did. They just didn't know what to do, so they started texting each other. They could text each other, but they couldn't call the police. I mean, either way you spin it, it doesn't sound good. I'm sorry. It just doesn't. So, yeah. What were they talking about within that 5 minutes? There's also some older information around the same time that this leaked to Steve Goncalves that Bethany was allegedly, she saw somebody go out the front door. or walk towards the road, or she saw somebody walk in the front yard, something like that. Saw somebody out her window. In the moment that that information made public, I immediately asked myself, okay, so that just confirms that whoever, because I notice how I'm not saying Brian Koberger, because I don't know if it was Brian Koberger. We honestly don't know. Yeah, the public opinion, the court of public opinion, yeah, he's already guilty, but really at the end of the day, we don't know who was in that house. He's not been convicted. So whoever the perpetrator was, both of them saw. What was Dylan? Was she up texting Bethany, telling Bethany, "Hey, there's somebody just went out the back door with a knife in their hand, and they're clad in black, and they don't look familiar. I've never saw them over here before. What was said among those conversations?" Here's another question to ask. If it was just so innocent, what we're supposed to believe that, because keep in mind, before the PCA, the police said that there were two survivors, and the chances are the two survivors were asleep during the attacks. We knew before the PCA that two of the victims were on the third floor, the other two were on the second floor of that house. However, police did not specify. Hindsight is 2020, yes, and they did this on purpose. Most likely. We were all assuming that they were both on the first floor of the home. It's not until the PCA came out that we learned that Dylan Mortensen was on the second floor. There was also information that came out about the 911 call the following morning, approximately like 11:30-ish. Can't remember the exact time period, or can't remember the exact time frame. But it came in, they waited 8 hours. Just put this in your mind for 1 second. Can you imagine? Let's use our imagination. Can you imagine you and your friend or somebody that you knew, you and this person lived at the same house, and there was somebody that there was a lot of suspicious sounds that were happening between screams and somebody saying that it's okay, I'm going to help you, and whimpering and crying, and somebody walking out the back that you possibly never seen over here out the back door. You heard all of this stuff going on. And there's nothing wrong with them texting, right? Because that's what most people would do, right? You would text your friend like, "Hey, did you see what I saw?" Because I know I would do that. Now again, I'm just speaking for me. But just speaking as example, if you suspected that there were 4 crimes that just happened, especially murder, wouldn't you think that at least between the both of you, someone is going to say, maybe we should be calling the cops? There you go. I'm sorry, you cannot be in a frozen shock phase and be texting someone at the same time. Miss Dylan Mortensen. Frozen shock. What does it mean to be frozen shock? Exactly. You know, a lot of people's been Googling it because it's one of the first results. So, according to Medical News Today, a freeze response involves a different psychological process than fight or flight. Research from 2015 describes it as an attentive immobility, while the person who is frozen is extremely alert. They are also unable to move or take action against the danger. Freezing causes basically, you're not able to move, as what is said in the term. You're froze. So how are you froze? Everything froze but your fingers. I mean, please make it make sense. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot be in a frozen shock phase and up texting each other. You were able to text each other, but you weren't able to call the police. The more that you dissect this, and the more information that gets leaked out by jurors, which is it was very surprising to me. Because I didn't know about that information. I just knew that one of the family members got it some way, somehow. I didn't know a jury member leaked this information. Why are you leaking things? And you're a member of the jury. You know? Like, that's a big no. But I digress. This is interesting information that we have here. Interesting. Let me see if I can find Bethany Fuke and her accounts of seeing somebody walk out the front door. Once again, thank you for tuning in to Bandit Network Television. Like, share, and subscribe if you have tuned in to the podcast. And also for the people that are watching on the replay. Now, keep in mind, let's talk about Bethany for a second. As many of you know, Bethany is the one, or you may not know if you're not familiar with the case. Bethany was the one on the first floor of the home. She doesn't get talked about a lot, but she is the surviving roommate that Koberger's defense team is claiming has, quote, exculpatory, end quote, evidence that can basically exonerate him from the crimes. Give somebody a quick reminder. Oh, let's see right here. So, Bethany Fuke fights order to testify at Koberger's hearing. News Nation is the source of this information.
Doug and Andre came to TurboTax.
Excuse me, advertisements, people.
I want to turn back to those documents, the legalese. It is sticky stuff. Let's be clear. I mean, the fight that's going to go on between Idaho and Nevada over a young girl, she's just out of her teens, Bethany Funk, whether she's going to have to be hauled back into the horror zone. I mean, that's really what it is, right? Koberger's attorneys wanting her to come and back him. Just imagine that. Imagine that. There's somebody who doesn't have to imagine it because he lives in this world. It's Dave Ehrenberg. He's the state prosecutor in Palm Beach County. Dave, before we even get to the subpoena, I'm fascinated by your take because you don't even think that there should even be a preliminary hearing at all. So can you explain in layperson's terms why and what would be the alternative?
Good to be with you, Ashley. So prosecutors have two options. You could ask a judge to find probable cause. That's what we're doing here. It's a preliminary hearing. Probable cause is what's needed to make an arrest. So the arrest has been made. Now a judge is going to decide whether the arrest can go forward because the judge will decide whether there's probable cause. That's why there's a debate over witnesses. The defense at these hearings get to call witnesses. They get to force the prosecution to put on some semblance of a case. And so these hearings are beneficial to the defense. It forces the state to show its hand. It forces witnesses like Bethany to show up. Or there's another alternative. The prosecutors can just go to a grand jury and seek a grand jury indictment. That's done in secret. There are no defense lawyers there. There are no defense witnesses. In Florida, this would go to a grand jury. We would not be going through this preliminary hearing stuff. But in Idaho, grand juries are much more rare. I still think that it should happen here. It would protect Bethany, and it would just speed things up. You wouldn't have to wait 6 months for this hearing.
You know what, though? You know how it is, right? Like, his attorneys will fight tooth and nail not to have a grand jury because the old dumb expression, which isn't true, is that you can indict a ham sandwich with a grand jury. It isn't true, but it is a lot easier, to have a grand jury indict because the defense attorneys don't get to go there. So you can imagine that they would be like screaming cats fighting that one.
Yeah, but the best thing, it's not their call, Ashley. The prosecutors can get a grand jury indictment, and it's probable cause is the standard. They can move that. Now, I'm not an expert on Idaho law, but I gotta believe that this would be the path of least resistance. It's available to them, and I just don't understand why they don't pursue it that way. It would avoid all these problems.
And the other thing is the thing that the law doesn't allow.
Okay, let me just pause it right there. So by the commentary, you heard that, of course, last year, during the preliminary hearing, they were calling upon Bethany Fuke to give her testimony, eyewitness account, because they believe that she has exculpatory evidence. soon after you hear this information about Idaho and Nevada going back and forth, whether to expedite this young lady, they swooped in with a grand jury indictment, and that's what got Koberger wheels moving in the courtroom. But it's the reason why I'm sharing this information is because for the people that don't know about the case and that are not familiar, I do apologize about showing Fox. This is coming from Fox.com, y'all. But, oh no, it's not. I just wanted to be sure that my background image was still stable. Sorry about that. What was Bethany and Dylan texting each other about? What were they talking about? Because as somebody said before, it's not like they're up talking about what they're going to be wearing to parties or something irrelevant to the context of what just happened and transpired. You know that they're most likely talking about what happened to their friends, acquaintances, roommates. Let's just say that. Why did the defense team want Bethany Fuchs' accounts? Now you read some information right here. This is coming from Court TV. And apparently surviving roommate agrees to interview with Koberger's attorneys. What were they really talking about during that time period? That really makes you think. Because if the perpetrator was leaving at 4:20, and the phone activity extends out to 4:25, which sounds like a not too bad of a time gap and not a whole lot of time. But when it pertains to texting each other on the phone and you're in the same house and the two of you are coherent and you're texting back and forth with no delays, time can fly by fast. So what was the conversation like? What were they saying to each other? What was being said? What were the text messages? Was there something else being said before that? Did it say when they started to text each other? Because they only told when their phone activity ended, or them texting each other, the time based off the text. But when did they begin to text each other? And what was being said? It's just food for thought. Again, Court TV right here is the source. Surviving roommates agreed to interview with Koberger's attorneys.
He's charged with first-degree murder and burglary in the deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. Hearing saying she has information material to the charges against their client. They say that information could prove.
Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to skip past some repetitive information here. Let me just
client. They say that information could prove exculpatory to the defendant. Funk's attorney argued they have no legal standing to subpoena Funk, who currently lives in Nevada. Now, in a motion filed on Wednesday, Funk's attorney said that her client had reached an agreement with Koberger's attorneys to have her interview with them in Reno in lieu of appearing at the hearing. Now, the motion does not stipulate when the interview will be done. The other roommate who survived the murders, Dylan Mortensen, was not mentioned in the subpoena or motion. All right, still with me, criminal defense attorney Jack Rice and criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Franz Borghardt. And I'll start with you, Franz. I was kind of shocked by this subpoena. My understanding is that preliminary hearings are controlled by prosecutors. They can call who they want. What do you think about the subpoena initially? Were there some ulterior motives, something else going on behind the scenes? Your thoughts?
Well, states differ from state to state as to whether or not the defendant has the right to subpoena and put on witnesses and testimony. But generally speaking, a good prosecutor is going to make it as tight and compact as they can. Now, remember, a preliminary examination for the viewer's purpose is not a full-blown trial, Michael. So I absolutely think it is strategic on behalf of the subpoena that's being issued. That being said, it's really, really dangerous to start firing subpoenas to victims this early for things like preliminary examinations, because it also creates a certain optic of is the defense trying to bully? Are they trying to do something? We know that they have an obligation to defend this guy and to make sure that they dot their I's and cross their T's. I just optically, I don't know how I feel about it. But look, at the end of the day, they're going to get to do it.
Yeah, that's really the whole purpose of the whole thing. And Jack, just for our viewers' sake, the defense has a right to speak to her. She's someone who spoke to police. She was technically a victim. She was in the house. Again, she was asleep downstairs, but she was the one who, in fact, did find the bodies. One of those collateral damage things we talk about a lot of the time. And, what information she has, we do not know. Probably the defense doesn't know either. My thought is that maybe they were trying to contact her, wanted to talk to her. Maybe she was being difficult. She did talk about in her opposition papers to the subpoena that it would cause a lot of emotional distress on her part. As a matter of fact, she was trying to keep out of the whole trial, but the defense does have a right to talk to her, do they not?
And that's a big part of this. At least they get...
Okay. Wait. Again, this is even though this is older content, it's good to go back and listen to this stuff because you pick up on new things that you didn't hear before. Let's go back and listen to that once again.
It would cause a lot of emotional distress on her part. As a matter of fact, she was trying to keep out of the whole trial, but the defense does have a right to talk to her, do they not?
So, is that information true? Is that information true, Miss Bethany Fuke? Is the information true that you just want to skip out on trial entirely? Why? If so, why? Why would you be afraid to, why would you not want to go to trial? If we are led to believe that this was just an innocent mistake that was deadly. Oh, we didn't know what we were doing. We were really scared and God, we were just in a frozen shock phase. I don't even want to go to trial because it could just be very emotional and distressing to me. Now, I do understand that she, of course, that way anything that anyone that just experienced that, even was in the same house, I would imagine would be very distraught. But again, there's only so long that you can continue coddling these two surviving roommates and witnesses. And eventually, sooner or later, it's going to happen at trial. I hope that the two of you have your story straight, because the defense is going to tear you a new one. They are not going to be nice to you at all. They're going to be really, they're going to be asking some hard questions. And some of you are going to be listening to this, or again, people that get really touchy when you talk about the two roommates. And they act like that's just a no-fly zone, even though there's buzzing red lights that are going off around their actions and how they handle this entire thing. One of the surviving roommates doesn't even want that. She initially had plans on not attending trial at all. So she didn't want to go to trial at all. Is that what it is? She didn't want to go to trial at all. You waited 8 hours to call police. And then even then, it wasn't you that called. It was someone that called on your behalf, because it was a call for a passed out person, which we're going to go there. We're going to go there. Oh yeah, some of you forgot about the initial 911 call from the beginning. A call for a passed out person. And then you hear information about people coming over to the house, discovering the bodies, telling people to call 911. What was happening? What was happening in those 8 hours? That long period of time from 4 to 11, those 7 hours. Who all could have entered 1122 King Road? And if it was something that you honestly didn't know what was happening, and it was upstairs, be like, well, that doesn't sound right. And even after somebody left, I mean, come on, let's just be realistic. You can't be oblivious. You're going to smell iron, blood. You're going to notice something is not right. Within those dwellings. The 911 call was for a passed out person. Yet and still, you would have to question, well, a passed out person. Were they referring to the roommate that passed out because she couldn't call 911? She passed out, she saw something, she passed out. She told somebody to call 911, or she saw something, she passed out, and then someone called 911 for her. But then police entered the house. But how I'm just trying to wrap my mind around what could have happened that morning when the call was placed. I'm not trying to be sarcastic. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm just trying to make sense of it. Because if you're calling for a passed out person, and then it turned out that 4 people were just stabbed to death, how could you confuse the two? Please make it make sense. How could you confuse the two? between someone being unconscious and someone just getting stabbed to death. There's an obvious difference. I don't need to say what it is. Someone just getting stabbed to death with a knife, and then an unconscious person. And it didn't turn out that neither one of the roommates called. See, we really don't know because they haven't released that information, and they probably won't release it until trial. I'm very curious about who made the 911 call, because it said it was made off one of the roommates' phones. But someone was talking on behalf of one of them. See, so from the very beginning of this case, it was confusion. Then the story shifted and changed. And now some older information. You know, I'm not here to confirm whether it's true or not. I don't know, but some information about Snapchat and people talking on Snapchat that there was an OD. So you see, there's shifting versions of the story. And it had to come from somewhere. Where did it come from? Where did it come from? If we are led to believe that is true, if that is true, allegedly, the drug theory, the overdose theory, some people were talking about that, and then the story changed. Ended up that they were stabbed to death. My question is, where did this initial information come from? This is very questionable. You know, I know I'm kind of just going off on the limb, but again, we're talking about the two surviving roommates. Like I said, I hope the two of them have it together, their story straight, when trial takes place in this case. Let's carry on.
They do. And that's a big part of this. At least they get to try to do so. You know, there's one thought here, Michael, that actually what this is this is a defense strategy. The idea that what you're seeing now is an aggressive, muscular approach from the defense that's somewhat scorched earth. The idea that we're going to come at everybody in this case with our sleeves rolled up and ready to fight. And so the argument is about going after her just like you're going to go after everybody else. So if you're going to get involved in this trial, and if you're prepared to testify, and you're prepared to testify against Kohberger, then you better be prepared for the kind of cross-examination, the kind of approach that a defense team like this would be willing to do to one witness who's actually in Reno. So that's a possibility, and it might be a hint of what's coming in the future. Franz, fill me in on the logistics in something like this. Now you have defense attorneys in Idaho. They've got to go all the way out to Reno. Who foots the bill? How does that all work?
Well, if he's indigent, I would imagine the state is going to fit the bill. If he has private counsel, the defense is going to do it. The defense has this ability to do all this, but they don't. It's not necessarily at the government or the state's expense. But again, if he's indigent, I suspect that there'll be a funding allotment for it. I'll tell you, at the end of the day, she won't be fitting the bill. Now, the state should also have some prosecutors out there theoretically to, make sure that nothing, odd or funny is happening, and that may be something they can do through recording or whatnot. But at the end of the day, you want to interview her, you're going to have to jump through those hoops to make it happen.
And to Franz's earlier point, Jack, I mean, I think the defense here has to be careful with these types of witnesses. You don't want it to appear that Bethany Funk is being made some sort of pawn in this larger game. I understand you want to send a message, you're going to be aggressive, that's clear. But at the end of the day, you don't want it to appear that she's some sort of pawn.
Oh, I completely agree, because I think one objective fact is this young woman is a victim too. I mean, regardless of what happens with the Kohlberger case, whether guilty or not guilty, I think you can say without question, everybody in that house with 4 dead teenagers, 4 dead young college students, they are all victims. And so as a result, you have to act appropriately with them. Because if you don't, remember, what happens outside of a courtroom is going to impact the entire jury pool. When you start picking juries, all of these people are going to have some sort of connection to social media, to the world. And I think the idea that you're assuming that they're not going to have ever heard about this case in this part of the country, in this part of the state, is simply laughable at best. And if you're acting like a jerk, if you're acting like an idiot, then you could pay a price for that when you get that jury pool rolling into that courthouse.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I think in this particular instance, that's a win for the defense. They do want a venue change. And there is a large gag order in place, a very comprehensive gag.
Okay, so
gag order in place.
Yeah, there is Court TV and their commentary on Miss Bethany Fuke. I'm just still thinking about how Bethany Fuke doesn't want to attend trial, or initially she didn't want to go to trial. And as you heard the commentator say, that yes, they are witnesses, as I like to say, they're witnesses, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, they did survive this quadruple slaying that happened to these young people. And it could have happened to anybody. But unfortunately, it turned out that it was them. And regardless if it was going to be them or not, it was going to be somebody, because, you know, whoever did this, if you were to believe it is Kohlberger, it was going to happen regardless. Bethany and Dylan. I am oh so curious as to what comes out at trial, what the two of you will have to say, what exactly transpired as far as the conversations about what happened November 13th between 4 a.m. and 11 a.m. Will the rumor of the unconscious person be explained in your testimony? Who placed the 911 call off one of your phones? Whose phone was used to place the 911 call? Did either one of you leave your rooms to go to the other's room because you were scared? Did both of you witness the same person exiting 11:22? Will these questions be answered at trial? I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see. And let me just go ahead and say this, and then I'm going to wrap up the this podcast. I'm in no way, again, implying that these two young women had something to do with what happened on that night on November 13th to these 4 college students. Do I think that there's pieces of the puzzle that only the truth lies with them? Perhaps they've talked to prosecutors. Perhaps they've talked to the state, the defense, and this information has not been made to the public or has been private. Because that's another possibility. It could be made private. There's some information that we just don't know. As I continue to say, Idaho does not have to show all of their cards. To the public. I'm speaking in court of public opinion. For all we know, this information about Dylan and Bethany texting each other could hold significance and shine light on whoever did this crime. And perhaps shed innocence on Brian Koberger, or work against him. We're just going to have to see. Like, share, and also subscribe to the network. And thank you for tuning in once again to Bandit Network Television. Check out my other episodes on the IDAHO4 student murders on the podcast that I've created, along with my other true crime commentary podcast.